It is 6:02 or 6:01. I'd like to open the regular planning board meeting for Tuesday, March 19th. We are being either broadcast or we're being recorded, or both?
All three going.
All three going, okay. First up is administrative items. Approval not required, A&R for 1193 American Legion Highway, file number 24-005A. Request by the applicant to combine a portion of land located at 1193 American Legion Highway, Assessors Map 33, Lot 47B, with 1177 American Legion Highway, Map 33, Lots 43D and 43F. Is there somebody here for that? Please identify yourself.
My name is Jeremy Holden.
And
We own 1177 American Legion Highway.
your address? Is that your
Yes.
address too? Okay.
A long time, like 30 years ago, my father and my uncle came to the agreement of that piece of property changing hands. It was never fully filed. It was filed with the town, but not registered in the deeds.
Mhm.
So we pulled a permit 3 years ago to put that garage up. We had it inspected, the whole 9 yards. The plan that we went by matches, it has like instead of being straight across, it has an angle to it. We never knew until November that it wasn't finalized legally. So the garage that we put up is actually on my uncle's property. And nobody knew about this until my uncle redid his will and his lawyer picked up on it.
Okay.
So we came to the agreement, the line that they came with was this corner to that corner.
Mhm.
My uncle agreed to sign over that portion of it if we made it square, and he still had 2 acres of property. So we hired the surveyors to come in and lay it all out, and that's exactly what he has. He has 2.01, and then we have just enough, that back corner is 11 feet for the property line to the garage. So the surveyor said it met all the requirements, and the garage is already up, it's finished, it's power, we've had all the permits pulled for it and everything.
Okay, so that building that we see there, the square one, is the garage you're talking
Yes.
about? 11 feet, so parcel A is going to become part of lot 1? Or part of lot,
Yeah.
So that is gonna become part of his lot.
This right here becomes part of this lot.
that big lot? Okay.
Yeah, this was my uncle's house, this is our house.
Okay. And where exactly is this?
What do you mean?
It says Branch Westport River?
Yeah, you know the old Montessori school? The old Montessori school? Where the
Yes.
Quinn directly across the street. Where the old Quinn property used to be, what's to the left.
Okay,
They touch the Nokochoke village on the.
Yeah, that's the right hand side of us.
okay. All right. Planners?
Yep, so the frontage remains unchanged for both lots, and the applicant's frontage is on American Legion Highway, which is a public way certified by the town clerk. The creation of parcel A to be combined with 1177 is located to the rear of the property, and therefore the frontage, I already said the frontage is unchanged on both properties. There's no change in the creation of any way relating to this proposal. There's no proposal of installation of municipal services, and the shift of the lot line creates parcel A in order to take place the existing garage. I'm sorry, I'm reading. So I have one question. So when I go on GIS, it looks like part of the garage is almost on one of the property lines.
No.
Okay.
The property, the original detail we had was, like I said, that angle, so we didn't even have to worry about it.
Yeah.
When we walked it, that dotted line is actually the property line.
Okay.
So it's, when we thought it was a lot closer to it, but when they surveyed it, they said it was, the lines that we had on the drawings that we had weren't close.
Okay. Then the assessors just looks like it could be part, like,
Yeah, I saw
part
the
of
same
it.
thing, but when we had them survey it, the lines you have are accurate.
Okay.
The ones for the town, I asked the same question, and she said that It's the aerial view from like the cameras. It's not exactly perfect.
Okay,
And there's 3 different specific, like the neighbor next door had it surveyed, my uncle had it surveyed, and then I did.
yeah.
And 2 of the surveyors had different lines. Mine's surveyor matched my uncle's surveyor.
Okay, that's fine, I just had that question. It doesn't matter, because both of the lots are still gonna remain over 60,000 square feet. You
Yep.
have over 30,000 square feet of contiguous uplands on both. And so you're not making this lot, non-conforming or taking away from the other one. So it meets all the criteria for an A&R, and I recommend that it be, approved. It also has like that parcel A is not a buildable lot, so
Yep.
that was required in the plan, so.
Okay.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Yeah, yeah, the plan's stamped by a registered land surveyor, so plans with GIS is off a little bit sometimes, so we'll go by a registered land surveyor.
That is true. Okay. So then I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the endorsement of the plan entitled Approval Not Required, 1193 American Legion Highway, Assessors Map 33, Lot 47B, Westport, Massachusetts, because the plan complies with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81P.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is approval not required, A&R for 512 River Road, file number 24-006A. Request by the applicant for endorsement of a 2-lot plan to reconfigure land located at 512 River Road, Assessors Map 87, lots 61 and 61A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. My name is Mark Boucher with Boucher and Associates. And I'm here this evening on behalf of my clients, Ryan and Kristen Mulaney, who own the properties at 512 and 510 River Road. And the plan we have before you this evening is merely to reconfigure the current lot lines between the 2 existing lots. The old lot line to be deleted, you see, has been highlighted in red on your exhibit here. And the new lot line that we've created to contain the existing house, the new house basically, which is the large one to the east. And what we show as being the cottage, which is the Mulaney's intent to modify to become an accessory apartment to conform with provisions of the accessory apartment bylaw in town. They've already spoken with Ralph at the building department about what would need to be done in the past, and then the existing house at 512 is to remain. In the past, the Mulaney's had proposed to demolish one or the other of either 512 or 510 in order to be able to build a new house. We filed 2 plans that reconfigured lot lines because of basically the Mulaney's lived there for years and years, and there was a family issue about raising the house out front near River Road. So Brian, who owns both lots, basically had conveyed, on one of the plans, had conveyed a piece of property to the south, to the neighbor to the south, which resulted in order for him to be able to leave 512 there, he had to take off an enclosed sun porch to meet the setbacks. And in this instance, with the lot lines we're creating, there are going to have to be some modifications done to the existing cottage so that he can get a special permit from the zoning board in order to qualify as an accessory apartment. But the plan we're showing this evening shows 2 lots, does not alter the frontage. They both have conforming frontage and area and upland area to qualify, and we are requesting that the board vote to endorse this plan as approval not required.
Okay, planners?
So lot 6 fronts on River Road, which is a public way certified by the town clerk. Lot 7 fronts on Rosemary's Way, which is a way shown on a plan that was approved and endorsed in accordance with the subdivision control law. So that meets the standards. Lot 6 has 150.10 feet of frontage along River Road, and Lot 7 has 180.86 feet of frontage, which also conforms. River Road has sufficient width, suitable grades, and adequate construction to provide for the needs of vehicular traffic in relation to the proposed reconfiguration of the land. The use of the land will remain unchanged, and there's currently no proposed installation of municipal services to serve such land in the building erected on the properties. Rosemary's Way is a private way that will remain unchanged and adequately provides for the needs of the current use of the land, which is residential. Lot 7 has an area of 146,400 square feet. Lot 7 has an area of 69,594 square feet. And the west branch of the Westport River is located to the right of both lots. However, there's no wetlands on the properties. So just in regards to an A&R endorsement, the plan does meet an A&R standards.
So does it also comply with our other bylaws, for instance, the lot configuration bylaw? Because it seems that there's a cottage in the way of the 50-foot circle that goes from the frontage to the house.
Yeah. So we do recognize that there's 2 single-family homes on it, which is a violation of zoning section 7.1. The A&R proposal would eliminate the violation for the parcel at 512 River Road, but then it would shift the violation to 510. And there would be 2 single-family homes with the large new house and the existing older house currently on the parcel. So it meets our guidelines and standards. However, I don't know what that would do for future zoning violations.
So I just want to note that the determination that the planning board is making is whether or not this is an approval not required. The zoning issues are a separate consideration that are, that's the purview of the building inspector. This plan does appropriately indicate that in the right-hand corner beneath the signature line that an endorsement of this A&R is not necessarily an endorsement of compliance with the Town of Westport zoning bylaws.
And when you're saying that with the Town of Westport zoning bylaws, you would include the lot configuration bylaw?
That is correct.
And I looked up the approval for this Rosemary's Way,
2007?
2007, and it was approved with the stipulation that there be a road sign for Rosemary's Way, and there is not. It allowed them to stake the road, but not to build it. So there's 2 questions I have, and they're really for Ralph. The big stone boulders or posts that have been put in there, I think, really violate the opening of the road, the width of the road as it comes into River Road. And there really should be a sign for Rosemary's Way, because now the big house and the cottage, their address will be Rosemary's Way, not River Road.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the addresses are going to be ultimately. If they're going to be a sign, that would be up to the assessors department. I think in the past, if I'm not mistaken, there was a sign for Rosemary's Way. I think shortly after as you said, the condition of the planning board to approve Rosemary's Way waived any further construction. They required us to bound it, which we did.
Right.
And I want to say, I thought there was a sign put up at the time. Now, whether the sign may have come down or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the answer to that. As far as the lot width, I know there are some changes coming up in the future at the town meeting for zoning shape. I believe that the requirement, as it reads right now, is 50 feet minimum. to the minimum building setback, front building setback, which would be 25 feet into the lot. And the lot does conform with that, as I've currently shown.
No, it would be, I think it's 50 feet to the front of the house. You can look it up, I may be wrong, but I thought that's what it was.
It says from the street line to the street setback line, front building. It says front building line, so those two sort of conflict because the street setback line is definitely defined as being 25 feet in Westport. The front building line, I guess it depends on what building you pick.
Oh, yeah, I think if you pick the cottage, I think it complies.
Well, the lot width
So-
there is 51.5 feet. Now, I mean, there could be other, you know, physical obstacles, I think, within that area. It could be trees, it could be boulders. I don't think it necessarily violates the lot shape requirement.
That's really up to Ralph to determine, so not up to us. Okay, so any other comments?
I have there looks in the satellite picture like there's a indication of a driveway, but on the plan, is there a driveway on the northern lot indicated from Rosemary's Baby? Oh, I don't mean Rosemary's Baby, I mean Rosemary's Way.
We don't show the location of the driveway.
You don't show it. Where do you put it? How do you get to the big house?
I think
from
that the driveway,
Rosemary's
as
Way?
you see in the aerial, I think it currently comes down and swings onto lot 6, and then it goes to the house.
The driveway goes onto the lot 6?
Yes. But they own both lots, so we couldn't create an easement at this time because they basically can't create an easement to yourself.
Yeah,
If at such time as they were to convey
yeah.
lot 6, then an easement would have to be created to maintain.
And I know Rosemary's Way was approved, what did you say, Jim, 2007?
Yeah.
But this is, I mean, it makes a joke of frontage requirements, and this is why we're trying to straighten it out, because if you have things like this, why in the world do you have frontage requirements and so on? It's just, I mean, people have rules and then they have sharp engineers to get around every rule you have, so this is why we have things like this. And yes, the address should be Rosemary's Way, and there should be a big street sign that says this is Rosemary's Way, it's not River Road.
And another question for the planners. I mean, the driveway looks like it's going to cut across lot 6, the southern lot. Do they need a shared driveway permit or a shared driveway?
If they're planning on converting it into, so that there may be modifications to the existing cottage on the north end of the lot that may need to occur, so I don't know what kind of modifications that are being considered. But if it were found to be an accessory dwelling, you wouldn't need a shared driveway for an accessory dwelling and a single family home.
You would or would?
You would not.
Would not, no. I'm saying, do they, because they're crossing another lot, do they need a shared driveway? Because actually, I think the driveway for the house on the road is going to cut across lot 7 as well. So neither one of them access it from their own property.
I think at some point, the Mulaney's have discussed having a separate driveway constructed to serve 512 directly off of River Road to avoid having to do a shared driveway for the main house.
Okay. Any more questions, comments?
So we have the planner's recommendation on this, right? We've gone over that.
Yep.
You want a motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
I move to approve the endorsement of the plan entitled Approval Not Required Plan of Land in Westport, Massachusetts, prepared for Brian and Kristen Mullaney because the plan complies with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81P.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next is approval not required for 521 American Legion Highway. File number 24-007A, request by applicant for endorsement of a two-lot plan of land located at 521 American Legion Highway, Assessors Map 66, Lot 18.
Good evening, Sean Leach, Northeast Engineers for Mac Long. This is a big lot, existing now, lot 18. One lot has two existing commercial buildings on it. The commercial zone goes right alongside this building. What we're doing is we're creating a lot on the residential side of this that meets the frontage and area requirements, and also 11-foot offset to the existing building, which meets the offset requirements of the building. So the two lots both meet the requirements of zoning for frontage area and upland.
So this is right, where's American Legion Highway?
The American Legion Highway right over here.
Okay.
What's the shaded area, Sean?
That shaded area is an access easement.
Is that for the benefit of lot
18-2.
18-2, yeah?
Yes.
And McCady is an approved subdivision way?
It's approved subdivision way, I believe, 2007.
2003.
Well, what's the purpose of the access easement if you already have access on the north side of that building? Or don't you? The long, thin building between the two buildings
You
on 18-2.
You have 11 feet between the two buildings. If you
No, go to between the two buildings on 18-2, lot 18-2, yeah. Isn't there access to get to the southernmost building?
Yeah, they use this, some of this is used for storage right now. And they want to continue using it.
The back side of it,
Yes, the south side, I guess.
south side. Well, I assume there was access from the north side,
Yeah,
but you need both.
well, there's access to both buildings out in Katy.
Okay.
So these are commercial buildings?
Yes. You might be familiar, there's condos here, the store, got the market is here, and then there's another storage building back here. I think you've seen these condo buildings over the years. There are a number of condo buildings John Montano designed.
These are the commercial condo buildings?
Yes, correct.
Not residential?
No, correct, yes, commercial condo.
So now I know where it is. So
Yeah, correct.
can you describe again why we're doing this?
The zoning boundary residential commercial goes right up alongside the building.
Yeah.
Ideally, that would be the best place to put it, but then you wouldn't have the offset to the building because it meets zoning requirements. So you
Right.
have to shoot them over. Shoot them over, you have to make a little kick in the line to make it meet their area requirements.
I see. So he's going to develop lot 18-1 or sell it or something?
I would imagine 18-1, I would imagine, yes.
Okay, so that's why you're moving it over. Okay, I got you. Any comments, questions? Planners?
So as portrayed in the plan, both lots will have adequate frontage, they already do, and they'll have adequate area and uplands. So the plan presented meets the criteria to endorse for an A&R.
Okay. If nobody has any questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the endorsement of the plan entitled Approval Not Required, AP 66, Lot 18, 521 American Legion Highway, Westport, Mass., because the plan complies with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 4181A.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think next is Rosewood Lane. No, next is summer schedule discussion.
That's very
So,
important.
it is. So, who's gonna lead off?
So I think that right now, we usually do one meeting in July and one meeting in August. And I think as we have it right now, we have 3 scheduled in July and 2 in August. So whichever, if you all feel like either bringing July down to 1 or 2 and bringing August down to 1, that is,
Yeah, I would be in favor. I would suggest eliminating at least July 2nd. And not to make them too spaced out, the last one in June is on the 18th, so a month later would be the 16th about.
okay, so which one are we eliminating for August?
I'd say this, for August,
Oh, are we still in July?
we're still in July, I'd say the 2nd and the 30th.
Okay.
And then in August, I would suggest eliminating the 27th, but be open to anybody else's.
Want a motion?
Sure.
That's fine.
I move to eliminate the planning board meeting scheduled for July 2nd, July 30th, and August 27th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next is Rosewood Lane, file number 23-039C, endorsed certificate of approval form C1 and Mylar.
I can grab those from the office. I don't know if we have the certificate of approval though yet, or if it's cleared, from the town clerk for the appeal period. For 20 days. Is that, 21 days
From when?
from when it was filed with the clerk?
Was it filed?
Yeah, it was filed. I'll we can go over that one.
Well, we can pass over it until we're clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So, next is Stacy Lane, file number 20-002C, LID, SPA, endorsed Form O, partial release of Lot 10 and release surety reduction. Is there somebody here for that?
Or is there not? Okay. I had talked to Mr. Oliver earlier today. He said he would be here for this. However, regardless, the applicant is requesting the release of Lot 10, which is 18 Stacy Lane, and the reduction in surety for the roadway from $100,000 to $35,000. SW Cole performed a site inspection and verified that the roadway bounds have been installed in accordance with the as-built provided. SW Cole recommends the release of Lot 10 as well as a reduction in the cash surety from $100,000 to $50,000. Outstanding items remain of infiltration basin, silt removal and grading, and the roadway right-of-way and cul-de-sac grass growth and slope stabilization. So staff recommends that that the release of Lot 10 Stacy Lane as well as a reduction in surety from $100,000 to $50,000 as recommended by the town's consultant engineer until the full project completion is obtained with satisfactory grass growth within the roadway right-of-way and stabilized slopes and infiltration basin regrading work.
Okay, are there any comments from the board? Questions?
So he had requested a reduction of 65,000, and staff, based on the review, says instead of 65, it should be 50.
Yes.
You want a motion, Mr.?
Please.
I move. Now, does this release Lot 10 from the covenant?
Your motion would.
Yeah, okay. So I move to approve the release of Lot 10 from the covenant for the subdivision known as Definitive Residential Subdivision Stacy Lane off Fisher Road, Westport, Massachusetts, which was dated November 23rd, 2020. Additionally, we will retain $50,000 in surety.
Second. Any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to vote in favor of this, however, I'd just like to make a point on some of the things that are going on that project. So we're releasing that lot, but my feeling on the amount of surety that we did hold, we should remain that until we could get a complete sign-off on the project, but I'd be willing to vote in favor of the motion at the table.
Okay. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next is Inheritance Lane, file number 23-010C, endorsed Form G for surety.
Yep. So, back in January, the board voted to accept SW Cole's surety estimate of $133,000 for the roadway completion and associated work. And since then, Derek has gone out. He went out on March 12th and did a site inspection and saw what has been done. The applicant is now seeking a reduction in surety due to the ongoing work that's been done. And so I included it with my report in the paper form. SW Cole provided a report on this yesterday with an update and pictures. And so in his report, he is recommending that the surety be reduced and that the new amount is $65,550 that we hold.
Okay. Any comments, questions? I'd entertain a motion.
So I don't see this in our,
It's not written up to do, so.
I'm looking forward to your report.
Inheritance.
Oh. So this is just a reduction in surety?
Yep. We didn't have the report until yesterday, so it wasn't included in your packets.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that on Inheritance Lane, based on the recommendation of S.W. Cole and our staff, that we reduce the surety to $65,550.
Is there a second?
Second. A second.
Where is this,
Oh, where is that?
yeah,
Old Pine and Pine Hill.
That's the Dean family that came before us. Skip Dean, Grant Dean.
Yeah, the Dean families, yeah.
oh, yes, yes, I remember this. This is an old way that the UPS trucks would get down and get stuck at the bottom of it, and it shows up as a street. Now it looks like a street.
My only thing on this is, I mean, I'm looking at, it looks like they really just need to start getting some growth in there. I'm sure they're trying to put the surety up to stop building.
Yeah.
I think the surety might be a little excessive.
I would reduce it from the engineer's recommendation.
So this is a gravel way, right? So we're still looking for a second.
Second.
Manny,
I
second.
Oh, you
thought
did?
Mandy had seconded.
Yep.
He did.
Okay, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
This has to be.
Yeah, one more question on it. Because again, like the utilities, the big pot's the 34,000. So I'm sure they're gonna probably extend the utilities, you might wanna let them when they come in, maybe if they're getting the utilities before they get their building permit, they might wanna come and try to get a reduction. Because I know it's the family building houses for themselves out there.
Yeah, he'll be in tomorrow, so I'll let him know.
Okay, so next is the 6:15 public hearing for Corey Ridge Estates. This is file number 23-035C, continued from November 14th, 2023 and January 23rd, 2024. Request by the applicant to consider a definitive subdivision plan entitled Definitive Subdivision Corey Ridge Estates located at 265 Cornell Road, AP 81, Lot 4, proposing to divide the property into 4 lots. The applicant is requesting a continuance to a later date.
Yes, so we had just received revised plans for this, and they're currently being reviewed by our consulting engineer, but the revised plans didn't meet the deadline, and so we don't have a review for them, which is why that they are requesting a continuance.
Okay?
On the continuance sheet, I just put a date of May 21st of 2024, just to give some wiggle room to schedule out the next couple of public hearings that are continued on our agenda. So,
What time?
what do you mean?
If we're gonna continue it, to May 21st. You voted
Oh, that could be a 6:15.
6:15 on May 21st,
You want a motion?
please.
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue Corey Ridge Estates to May 21st at 6:15.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Next is the 6:30 public hearing for 435 Old Harbor Road, file number 23-037 SBA. This is continued from January 9th of this year and January 23rd of this year. Request by the applicant to consider converting the existing residence into an adolescent education and housing facility. But their request here is for site plan review. And so the applicant is requesting a continuance to a later date.
Yep. So for this project, we have not received revised plans at all, and we currently still need funds for the consulting engineer that have not been submitted by the applicant. We asked for additional funds probably about a month ago. I spoke to the applicant probably a little bit over 2 weeks ago. He said he was going to place the check in the mail, but we have not received anything, and we cannot get in touch with him.
Okay, we'll give them one chance. So what date do you want to pick?
If you, we could put this on May 21st if you'd like.
Okay,
6:30 or?
Yeah.
You want a motion? Mr. Chair?
please. Yep.
I move to continue the public hearing for 435 Old Harbor Road to May 21st at 6:30.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have time for this? I mean, is their application expiring?
We have,
We've had them consent to extending.
yeah,
Okay. Don't we need to vote on the extension?
not for that one, not for site plan, it's just special permit, so
Okay.
that's the next one.
Okay, so next it is about 6:45, the public hearing for Salty Breeze, Inc., file number 23-032 SPA-SP-RM, continued from October 17th and December 12th of 2023 and January 23rd of 2024. Request by the applicant to remodel the vacant parcel for a recreational marijuana dispensary. The applicant is requesting a continuance to a later date.
So with this project, I believe what we're waiting on is a traffic study, and we have not received that yet. And we do not have any revised plans either. So they're requesting a continuance to a later date. What I wrote on here, but also you can extend it if you'd like. I put it also up until May 21st.
You think
Could we
3 in
make-
one day is too much?
Let's move, just because it's all from the same engineering firm, so
Yeah.
we should move it to a
Yeah,
different date.
That's fine, I just put that for wiggle room.
Our engineering firm or somebody, their engineering?
June 4th?
It's all Northeast Engineers, so we're not gonna stack it with all of
Yeah.
the same firm.
You want to do June 4th
Sure.
at 6:15?
Yep.
Want a motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue the public hearing for Salty Breeze, Inc. to June 4th at 6:15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And do we need to sign the time extension?
Yep, just you.
Okay. Next is the planner's reports.
Okay, I'll go first because mine's a lot shorter than
Sure,
Michael's.
go for it.
So I basically covered all the stuff already, but I did want to just also mention that the town had partnered with Buzzards Bay Coalition, specifically Jason Claremont helped with the application process to advance the replacement of 3 undersized and deteriorating culverts on cold water streams and improve a critical and vulnerable habitat to our coastal ecosystem. 3 culverts were Cornell Road at Angeline Brook, Drift Road at Lyons Brook, and Drift Road at Snell Creek. And last week, we just received news back that we will receive $50,000 in funding, and that'll be put towards the initial steps with data collection and survey work. Michael and I have a call or even a meeting with Jason Claremont of Buzzards Bay Coalition later this week to go over the next steps for that.
Good.
All right, the first item on the planner's report is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. This is a grant that we were awarded last year, and due to some delays in getting the contract issued, we're just now getting started on it. And so I released an RFP in late February. Proposals will be due on March 27th, so hopefully the contract started in May of this year. Regarding our online permitting grant, our RFP closed on Friday last week, and we received 8 proposals. 6 were eligible to be reviewed, and so Amy and I will be reviewing those and issuing a decision on who we will contract with. Sometime next month, it would be a 2-year contract with whichever firm we select. Regarding the National Coastal Resilience Fund, I am coordinating a joint application with EA Engineering. It's a joint application with the towns of Dartmouth and Little Compton, and we're working with EA Engineering, which is a firm that we've been talking to about various coastal resilience issues over the past probably 8 months or so. And we've settled on applying to this grant with them to develop a coastal resilience plan that would identify particular projects that we could then go and search for grant funds to actually get a project off the ground. So again, I've met with the assistant town manager in Dartmouth. I've met with the town administrator in Little Compton. They're all on board. So we're partnering with them just because if you take a regional approach, sometimes that'll give you a little bit more of an edge in the review process. So we'll be hopefully developing. There's a pre-application that's due in the beginning of April, and then if you're invited to apply to the full application, we'll know that later on this summer.
And who are we applying to?
The National Coastal Resilience Fund.
Yeah.
So EA is heading up this application for us.
Good.
So, yeah, they assist municipalities with these types of grant applications who may not have some of the staffing capacity to apply for those grants in hopes that then they're awarded and then they can subsequently bid on those grants once they get released to an RFP.
So does this mean that there are locations that might be picked in each of these 3 towns?
So the way it would work, the way we've discussed it with those towns is that there'd be a plan for each, be taking a look at, we specifically picked Dartmouth and Little Compton because they're more rural communities west of New Bedford that are also in the Buzzards Bay watershed. And so it'd be taking a look at all those communities, looking at what kinds of projects could advance coastal resilience and recognition that coastal resilience it's obviously not bound by municipal boundaries. There's an opportunity to look at cross-jurisdictional projects as well. So each municipality would have a representation in that study, much in the same way that Buzzards Bay has done regional studies and then called out particular municipalities in that study. It would be a similar sort of approach. Each municipality would be responsible for doing their own public engagement. I volunteered to at least administer the grant, do all the, do the procurement process, which Jim is okay with. Jim Hartnett, town administrator, he's the chief procurement officer, and so he's okay with us administering the process and coordinating the grant across the municipalities. Next is the municipal vulnerability program. I'm considering that this is pending if I can find the time later on next month in April to apply for this. But the head of Westport is an area that floods frequently during southerly storms and high rain events, and it's particularly it tends to be worse when these weather events coincide with high tide. So it seems like, given that there's a bridge over the Westport River there, it's an area that floods frequently, would be a good candidate for having a vulnerability assessment done. And so if I can find the time to do this, I think it would be really beneficial to look at assessing that bridge for its vulnerability, and then also assessing some of the surrounding area for how we can improve resilience during those flood events.
Chair, I'd like to make a comment on that one. You should be able, there's a mass highway inspection on that bridge, so you should probably get that.
Okay.
I would think that would be an issue for the hazard mitigation plan too, because if that bridge goes out, it's awful hard to get fire trucks on the other side of the river.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah, I think if you get in touch with Highway, he has that copy from Mass Highway.
Chris, okay, yeah.
This was, by the way, this was something called out in the original MVP grant.
Mm-hmm.
Might want to mention that it's already
Right.
called out.
Yeah.
In one of our one of the 3 storms that we had this winter, the water was up to the river center. It was completely around the kayak place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I reached out to them when I started thinking about this. I'd heard about flooding, not last week, but the previous week, that there was some flooding with the high rains, and because that coincided with high tide, there was flooding. And I was like, oh yeah, this is something that we should take a look at through this program, especially because the RFR just was released, so it's fresh in my mind. But yeah.
And I would think that the East Branch, in a very hard southerly storm, acts like the Bay of Fundy.
Mm-hmm.
The more wind is pushing the water up in there, it just gets higher and higher.
All right, an update on our contracting with MBL Land Development. We've signed that contract, so they'll now be in our rotation for consulting engineers.
Good.
So it's nice to have an alternate in case field engineering's unavailable or they have a conflict of interest. It's always good to have a backup. All right, next is an update on the Hicks Bridge Landing renovation. Just a reminder that there is a public meeting for that in here tomorrow. And the plans are up here. But what this plan is showing is that the site will be modified with some coastal renovation measures, stormwater management area. They'll be paving the parking and regrading the parking area, and reworking how the site is configured a little bit to accommodate more parking on that site. So I'm not directly involved with this, although I've been coordinating things with the Landing Commission. And so if there's any interest, you can go, and Amy will be assisting at that meeting tomorrow.
And the source of funds to make this happen?
was, I can't recall off the top of my head, it was some sort of maritime grant.
Why are they deciding to have impervious surface where there isn't impervious surface now?
It is easier to manage spills of pollutants.
So
That's what I was told. I'm not.
Also probably the stormwater. Maybe I'll manage the stormwater, you know.
I think it would increase runoff
Well,
into the
what they're
river.
gonna do, again, now it's gonna be directed into catch basins and more than likely a storm scepter. which is-
So-
More than likely a storm what?
Scepter.
So, type of
There
catch
would be a
basin.
couple different basins that the stormwater will be directed over here, and at the rear of the site, it'll come through here and flow up towards this stormwater management area, and then eventually it would discharge towards the coastal restoration area. So there'd be some treatment areas before it enters the river.
So this would be required to come before us as a site plan?
It will require a site plan review before the planning board because of the increase in the number of parking spaces.
Are they
And
proposing,
disturbance.
are they proposing a new ramp?
What's that?
Are they proposing a new ramp?
There are
There are
a
two.
new ramp, it shows two, but it's one or the other.
That's one, yeah, so there are two docks under consideration under this plan.
So it'll be
I
one or
believe
the
the
other.
ramp will be new as well.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ramp is.
And the ramp is new.
Yeah, the ramp is in poor condition.
I know, John, you sampled there, right?
Yeah, I do my water sampling there. And, you know, I've never seen the parking lot full, but the, you know, the ramp is heavily used and the dock is used, and walking out on the dock at high tide is.
Thrill ride.
Yeah, you get your feet wet, you know, so.
And the dock as it's configured now, I've rode off that a lot. And, you know, it's very close to the channel opening under
Yeah.
the bridge.
Yeah,
So you have to be, you could catch yourself on the wrong tide and be, you
yeah,
know,
option A is probably better.
in the bridge.
How about for the facilities, because one of the things I've noted, we've had a little bit of issue down there with the porta-john.
Yeah,
On the weekend, it's,
yeah.
I mean, I think that might be, is that the Board of Health, or who's in charge of that porta-john down there?
I'd be the Board of Health. I don't know if it's accommodated in this plan.
Is this landing separate from the other landings in town? Is this one controlled only by the selectmen?
I mean, this is all being coordinated by the landing commission. I don't know who is
Because I know this is
the owner here.
separate
Right.
ownerships,
Right.
and some of them are for the benefit of not just us, but of Dartmouth, I
Or state,
think.
yeah.
Or state.
Yeah.
I can check that pretty quickly.
I would think the landing commission's probably in charge of it, the Board of Health should be giving it a permit, but it's been, I went in 3 times last year, and both times when we came out, you couldn't use it. So,
This one is owned by the town.
So what, I guess, my question is, why do we need this?
It's owned by the town and a component of
Is
it
it-
by the commission.
Yeah, I mean, so the ownership of all of them are slightly different for some reason. They're probably from colonial days, but.
Yeah, I don't,
seems-
there's actually a parcel that's right here almost, that's the landing commission, and then
The rest is the
the
town.
rest is the town.
But do they own the driveway, or is that the meeting house?
They own the driveway nearest to the bridge, and then at the rear of the site is the Noquachoke Hall Association.
So, they have to come before us for site plan as well as anything else?
They have to get a low impact development
Right.
approval. Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the things about when you asked about if needed, I think it's probably an excellent plan, because it will it will contain any contaminants, any vehicles get there. It doesn't look like they're looking for any waivers. I mean, we'll have the opportunity to review the whole design. I think it'll be a big improvement to the stormwater into the river.
Yeah, so is the issue that the landing at the back eddy is full or on certain times and people come here?
Well-
Does this location get heavily used?
So
Yeah, and this is much less tide. You know, you could go in at the back eddy and you're in a lot of current.
Yeah,
And the back end is a state ramp. I think this is just for us.
Mhm.
This is a local ramp.
uh-huh.
So this is more placid water.
This gets quite a bit of use.
There's a lot more use from rowers and
Yeah.
kayakers in this
Yeah.
location too.
I think this is gonna be tried to be funded by the same people, the same organization, I think the Seaport, something or other.
Seaport
Yeah,
Economic
Seaport,
Council,
Right,
yeah.
which is what did the improvements at the head with the seawall there.
But, you know, Dharma Voyage
Yeah.
is right off
Right here, right.
here. This is, every time I go down there, you know, to try and do my testing, I'm catching lines, I'm tossing off lines. It's used a lot.
You know, I think that those kind of uses, kayaks and canoes and sailboats, et cetera, are terrific uses. I don't know if this is going to lead to more motorized use of the river, you know, our east branch, because we are already seeing a vast increase in the number of larger outboards, let's say.
This is smaller. This tends to be smaller boats, rowing boats, and then the one down by the back eddy, which is bigger boats.
Yeah.
Because at the back eddy, a lot of those boats are going out for sport fishing. These are boats that are enjoying the river. They tend to be smaller.
Yeah, we go in with a small Carolina skiff in there.
Uh-huh.
We go in the bigger boats at the back eddy.
Yeah,
And, you know, the Carolina skiff's pretty low, so you get in the back eddy, you get a pretty good current.
yeah.
Yeah.
To give you a sense of what kind of boats might be accommodated, the parking spaces are only 40 foot for truck and trailer.
And that's another thing that's necessary, because with the gravel,
Mhm.
and it's just, like
Yeah,
you said, it's very busy and it's a mess.
It'll be delineated with lines and hopefully parking will be a little bit more orderly.
Do you need a town permit, or will
Yeah.
there be a fee like
Yeah,
you do at the state one?
yeah.
Town permit.
You need a permit.
Please find out about the Porta John permit too. Make sure that they have a Porta John permit.
Are you gonna be at this meeting tomorrow?
I will be.
I will be.
You will be. Could you ask if this is strictly a town of Westport thing, or if it's a local residential thing? In other words, you're gonna need a Westport parking permit.
You need a Westport parking
For this
permit.
one.
You
Yes,
do.
you do.
We get a Hicksbridge permit.
Permit.
Yeah. It's a separate Hicksbridge permit to park on here. And you have to be a town resident.
Okay, for anybody who's interested, what time is this meeting?
6 PM.
It's in here, right?
Yep.
I said, okay. I just want to make sure it was right.
Who's on the landing commission?
It's mostly Jeff
Jeff Cole.
Bull
Jeff
leading
Bull,
the initiative.
I know
I
that
can't
they've
recall names
asked
of the
Sean
other
Leeds
people.
because they have an opening, but I don't know if he's gonna do it. Used to be Carl Tripp too. I'm not sure if he's on it. So.
Okay, moving on. An update on our MVP 2.0 grant. This one's been a long time coming, and I've been struggling to get volunteers to participate, because it's more of a volunteer-based grant initiative, but I almost have a committee assembled for it. Focus of this is climate change and social resilience, and trying to reach out to groups in Westport that haven't always had a seat at the table in long-range planning initiatives. So, and then at the back end of the program, there will be a small award for a seed project. So, hoping,
Have
looks
you
like
talked to Kim Botello?
Kim Botello.
Yeah, she
No.
is the education person at the Watershed Alliance. She does a lot of work in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
She talked to me and I asked her to talk with you,
Okay.
but she's working hard to get young people in the schools involved in this.
So
And that might be
yeah,
perfect.
I did reach out to the advisor of the environmental club
Yeah,
at Westport High School, and the students just didn't have the availability. So I forwarded it to someone who coordinates the different club activities in the
Yeah.
high school, so maybe someone else will be interested.
Are we required to have somebody representing the environmental justice areas?
We do have someone representing that area, and
Okay.
they're also, they have a farm as well. All right, regarding the Route 6 sewer, there are a couple of different funding sources that I've been looking into, or that we will be looking into in the next month. So first is the Community Development Block Grant. This is a HUD program, and I've been working with Serpide to discuss whether or not there's an area in Westport that would be eligible under the HUD criteria, and it's an income-driven eligibility criteria. I think we're going to look into applying these funds to the second phase of the sewer, so we could potentially get up to $1 million in grant funds. They've offered to assist us with doing the income eligibility assessment. I think we would be looking at carving out our own sort of area of analysis for this grant program. So we'll see what happens with the votes in town meeting, and then all things go well, and we'll move forward with that.
So, a related question. I think it's coming up, maybe you want to just cover it when it comes up, the
Congressional directed spending, yeah. Yeah, so that's something that Bob and I were successful at applying for last year. We applied with all of our congressional representatives. It was Representative Keating who picked or sponsored the town to move forward in the appropriations process for this almost $956,000. We still don't have the funds yet, because I think, as we all know, there's been some problems passing a full budget in Congress, but we're still in the running for it, so as long as it makes it through that process, then the funds would be awarded. Going to make another try at applying for that program. We can potentially apply for, I was on a webinar the other week. They recommended a max application of $5 million. And I think where we would look at applying those funds would be in the second phase of the project, just because we already received funds for the first phase of the sewer project.
We received?
Good chair.
Or, excuse me, we have received
hope to
a
receive.
commitment from Representative Keating's office through the appropriations process. They haven't been received yet, although we're obviously hoping that comes through.
So that was my question, because I read in the paper that Representative Auchincloss has gotten, I think, 4 communities in his district, which is close to us. And it's the same amount of money for the same thing, for water and sewer, but it's been announced publicly that he's gotten it. So if he's gotten it, has Keating gotten it and not told us, or is Auchincloss telling everybody the same way Keating is telling us that we have it?
Mike, could
I don't want to
could
speak for what the representative has, communicated in his district, but I would say that, to my understanding, each subcommittee in the appropriations process gets voted on sometimes at different times.
Okay.
And so, for example, I think agriculture, like the appropriations that came through the agriculture subcommittee have already been approved in previous funding bills that have been passed. Ours is directly through the Interior and Environment. So if those funds had passed through that subcommittee,
Mhm.
I don't know if they have received those funds, because we have not received an indication that those funds have been approved through congressional budget. So if they came through a different subcommittee, that's possible. I can't speak to that, but as far as where our funds are coming from, they have not been they haven't been approved in any official capacity through Congress.
And then the final question, and then I'll let you finish what you're doing, is, in your experience, maybe where you were before, are funds likely to come in anticipation of us passing our own debt exclusion for starting this process? Or do we have to do that first and then funds are more available?
I would say that would be very beneficial to have those commitments in hand before you go and ask for the funds, yes, I think.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to correct that. We have a meeting on Friday, Gendro and myself, with some senators on this exact matter. And one of the things is we're going up there to explain to them the entire sewer project, not phase one. Kind of like what you said, the community block grant. So we want to look at what, our trunk line sewer has been designed to accommodate this whole north end of full build out. So we're going to make the feds aware of all our issues in that watershed. We have the Watuppa, which is a drinking water supply that we need to follow drinking water standards. This block grant, I think we have several different areas that we need to look at. So, I was told by our town administrator that the Macumber wasn't an environmental injustice neighborhood, and he forwarded me the map from the state or the feds, whatever it was, and the criteria on that map, which was a big swath along Route 6, was income, had nothing to do with the environment. So we're trying to identify that stuff right now. And one of the questions, because I wasn't involved in those meetings, when we bring the geotech work down phase one, and I guess initially it had stopped at 88, we continued that work down further, right?
We did.
Okay, so on the drill rigs, did they set any do any groundwater sampling, or set any wells? Or?
No, I think they were just looking at
Ledge.
borings and ledge.
So one of the things on this environmental injustice stuff and PFAS contamination is the contamination sits at the top of the ledge. So I think we kind of wasted a little bit of resource with the geotech work and not putting some wells and doing some water sampling. So the PFAS contamination that we're picking up in the grandfathered public wells, many of them are artesian wells. So you're getting some of the stuff is detected, but it's not above the limits, and some of it is above the limits. However, that's not telling us what's in the groundwater. So this stuff, a lot of these chemicals sink and they sit right on the ledge. So I think we were in a little bit of error in not setting some groundwater wells. Now, I imagine that would be Kleinfeld that should have took the lead on that. But again, so did Kleinfeld do about the study? Because I know we had a Camp Dress McGee, and we had a Face Boffett Thorndike study, and then we had the Kleinfeld study. So now they've done the design to accommodate that whole build-out. In that study, do we know how many houses that was gonna take for the study?
Yes,
How many was that?
I don't recall, but they did have the demand built on the number of homes.
Can you get that study to me tomorrow?
What's it called?
The integrated water management plan.
Oh, yeah, I have that. Yeah.
So on that too, I know it identified some wells in the Westport factory and on the upper end, but that study didn't say anything about the public water supply. I mean, I read it when I was running against David Cole. I haven't read it since.
So this is the targeted integrated water
Yeah.
resource management plan? So, does anybody know about the PFAS trigger point yet? I mean, I understood that the trigger for being contaminated, you couldn't have anything more than 19 or 20 parts per trillion,
It's 19 per trillion.
and that they were, EPA was thinking about reducing that to 4. Has that happened?
I don't think it has happened, but it is now 19, and EPA does want to lower it to 4.
One of the things with that again too is like we have some locations that we've identified the contamination, and I believe the DEP is investigating that. So again, we're testing in the drinking wells. I mean, we need to, under the mass contingency plan, we're supposed to move forward with monitoring wells that would monitor the groundwater, so we can follow the direction of the contamination. So I mean, that's another thing. Like when we mobilized the rigs in Route 6 for the geotech work, we could have done that at the same time, those wells, but
So,
I don't know if it's necessary now once they get the detection, but I know that the DEP is doing some investigating on that.
it's my understanding that we have some contamination in public wells along Sanford Road.
Yes.
They do.
And is it just one location, or is it?
Well,
Spotted around.
so what happened is that they've identified it in a public well, a private public drinking water supply, and so they did their testing, and they reported to the DEP. The contaminants came up, and then the DEP came out and checked the neighborhood, and some people in the neighborhood let them test their wells, some people didn't. So the DEP has moved forward and given treatment systems for those houses that have it, but plenty of them didn't. So I would imagine that the DEP is moving forward with some, to try to find exactly the extent of it. But some of them, like on our smaller lots, I think it's gonna, just because it's a small lot with a septic and it's not a compliant septic, we're gonna fall under that same criteria. So I think most of these neighborhoods in that whole north end where we need the sewer will fall under that criteria. So that's what we're trying to do when we go to Washington Friday, is to explain that this is our whole project, and we're starting at the trunk line sewer right now. And I do have a copy of that integrated plan, but I'd like to have a clean one when we go there. How about the Face Buffett stuff in Thorndike? Do we have a clean?
The which?
The Face Buffett and Thorndike study in the Camp Dresser McGee?
I don't know about the first one, but I know we've had the Camp Dresser thing around. There's another one too.
Yeah, would be the Face Buffett. I think Camp Dresser might have been the first one, but if you could see if we got a copy of that too, that'd be good for me, those two.
And it's really great that they're going and talking to, can't recall, is that Michael, I forget his last name.
We have several.
Okay, well,
meetings.
it's one of Senator Markey's aides. It's recommended that you go and email them to have a conversation about your project before you submit an appropriations request. But Manny and Evan will go down there and actually have the face-to-face interaction. So I think that's really good timing.
So we can thank Evan for setting up that appointment.
stay at the Trump Hotel?
I'm not sure where I'm staying, it's already been set up. but I didn't
The
really
Trump
look.
Hotel was sold, I think. So, I don't know who owns it now.
All right, I have a couple more items. Tomorrow I'm meeting with Fuss & O'Neill to talk more generally about applying to the Coastal Zone Management Program. I think really with everything that's been going on at East Beach, I think what we'll predominantly be talking about is what kind of methods we could use to slow coastal erosion down there, and if those methods would mesh with a CZM application. I initially reached out to them to see if they were interested in applying for the hazard mitigation grant. And they said, you know what, this is not really our wheelhouse doing this sort of work, but we help municipalities out with the CZM grant application. So I was like, all right, let's talk about that. So we'll see what happens with that, but you know, it's just convenient timing that popped up. Some updates from Serped regarding our application to their local technical assistance program. I applied for this to get the Conservation Commission assistance with renewing their open space plan, and they've committed to doing that with conservation in July. The open space plan is a precursor to different types of funding for conservation in the state, so it's important that that's renewed. They also reached out to me today, and this is very new. It was just this afternoon, but they asked if the town would be interested in applying to the One Stop program to develop an economic development plan that would emphasize economic development and trying to harness some energy with some of what's going on Route 6 and also the traditional industries in Westport, such as agriculture and tourism. So you don't necessarily need an answer right now on that, but that's something that they've offered to, it sounds like, to apply to One Stop, so that could be a good opportunity. And then lastly is an update on the Quequechan River Rail Trail. I am meeting with MassDOT and Serped next month, or this month, to begin the initial conversation to get this project placed on the Transportation Improvement Program. This would extend the bike trail from Fall River to Old Bedford Road, and we also have a Mass Trails grant outstanding for that. Haven't heard anything.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I append something to both Michael and Amy's reports, and that is about the Climate Resilience Committee, because they're both, as you are, involved in that committee, and the committee meets on Thursday. We meet virtually by Zoom, as you know. And along with the work of producing a comprehensive report on climate resilience, we were charged by the planning board and the select board with making recommendations on East Beach after the storms. And I'm hoping that at the meeting on Thursday, we can bring our role in that to a head. And as I understand it, the sequence here is that we have had a number of discussions in our Zoom meetings with people about what should be done, and we participated, I guess we held a meeting with elected officials in the select board on the topic. And what I'm hoping we will do on Thursday night as part of our meeting is to take all the discussion we have had, all the ideas that have been generated, and turn them into concrete recommendations. Michael has sent out a request to the members of the CRC for specific motions that we can vote for policy recommendations to the planning board. That's why I'm mentioning it tonight. So that the CRC will discuss specific recommendations for us, the planning board, to consider. And so we'll move those motions, we'll debate them if necessary, we'll vote them up or down, and the planning board shortly after that will get those, and then the planning board can look at them and say, okay, and can redebate them, decide what to do with them, but then it'll be the planning board's task to look at that and decide whether we want to go forward with any of them, add to them, do whatever we want with them, have any other public meetings, whatever we want to do with them, but the CRC's work on that will be done, and it'll now be in the lap of the planning board, and I can say, good, I'm done with it. No, I won't be able to because I'm on the planning board and I still get to deal with it. So, but that's, I just want to let you know that's kind of where it stands. So it's CRC first and then planning board and then select board.
Okay. Next would be minutes from February 20th.
So, Mr. Chair, I've read the minutes and I have a question on the minutes. I think they're very good, by the way. But my question is, there's a discussion on the minutes on the discussion on the zoning amendments and short-term rentals. And I appreciate the way we captured the concerns by the very good number of people who were in the audience. And then it said at the end that Bob Daler moved to close the public hearing on the zoning amendments, and that motion passed unanimously. And my question is, and I don't remember otherwise, but is that the only thing we did was close the public hearing, or did we also move to forward these zoning amendments to the select board?
We did.
We did?
We did.
So if that's the case, then this motion in the minutes needs to be amended to include that, or there needs to be a second motion, because we probably did one motion to close the meeting and then a second motion to forward the zoning amendments to the select board.
Yeah, we'll double check the recording and make sure they weren't combined. But yeah, no, we forwarded them to the select board following the close of the public hearing.
Yeah, okay. Otherwise, with that change, I think the minutes are excellent, but it does need that change. So I'd move acceptance of the minutes as amended.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Just a quick note about, to revisit item E on Rosewood Lane.
Okay, yep, so for Rosewood Lane, we're not gonna endorse it right now. I was waiting on revised plans that came in, but that's why it wasn't ready for endorsement tonight.
Okay.
It'll be ready at the next meeting.
Yeah, didn't we, at that meeting, didn't we ask to see, or suggested to the applicant that he modify the Rosewood Lane?
Yep,
The
and
actual,
he brought in revised plans that
Okay.
modified it.
Okay. Topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours before this meeting.
Mr. Chair. I have one, and I believe they'll be able to bring a little bit of clarity to it. So I've had a complaint lodged against me by one of the department heads and informed that I have possibly a, what do we call it, a conflict. And it would be a project that came before the planning board prior to me being on the planning board. And my company, Granite City Crushing, Inc., built the project. And I think you might have been on the planning board when it came, so it would be Prestige Auto.
I was.
Okay, so I just want to make it noted that there was also, during the construction of Prestige Auto, there was several complaints lodged anonymously and in person, but nothing in writing. This one, there was a complaint in writing and an anonymous complaint. So that project was approved under site plan review. I don't believe they got any waivers on that project. It was pretty,
Some time ago.
but I mean, that's not one of the big issues. So I just want to make it noted that all inspections, we did it under controlled construction. The design engineer was there. This is one of the few projects that has all of its permits: stormwater, infiltration basins, tight tanks for the drainage inside the building. They did get a waiver for sprinklers on the building. Again, everything was inspected. The Board of Health inspected the septic system. And the design engineer did inspect all the drainage and did an as-built on all the drainage. And so there was a complaint, a written complaint sent to the Board of Health, and as previously in the last few weeks, all this rain, so the system got inundated with stormwater from Mass Highway. So Mass Highway has a drain next to
Right.
the septic.
Forge Road.
Right there. It's right next to the septic, Mass Highway. So again, I wasn't on the planning board, so when that got approved, they probably should have had a sidewalk across the whole front. That was one of the issues there anyway. But the stormwater comes off Route 6, and the Mass Highway drain was plugged. So it flooded the whole parking lot and inundated the system. And what happened was, now that's a pump system that pumps all the way from the other side. So the system was inundated. Just so happened when the person making the complaint drove by in the morning, the pump had kicked on and water was blowing out the vent. So the Board of Health had sent the owner a complaint that he needed to have a Title V inspector out there. The owner got in touch with me since I had done the system, and I went out there in my capacity as Granite City Crushing, the licensed installer, looked at what needed to be done, what needed to be mitigated. We pumped out the tanks immediately so that nothing else, there would be no further public health threat. We inspected the tanks. This system has also been being continuously monitored, and we have all the pump records since the beginning. And then we went over, we realized that it was inundated from trash over the catch basin, which we took pictures of all of this stuff. They did have a picture from the complaint of the water coming out of the vent. So we took pictures of all this. We mitigated the trash area. We took the vent and we made a modification to the vent that would also put a backflow preventer on would this happen again. Because it's pretty simple. If it ever happened again, they got inundated, you can just shut the pump off, pump the tanks down like we did. So in pumping the tanks down, that'll give the groundwater a chance it'll probably take a couple of weeks before because there's several tanks before they fill up. So I think we've averted the public health threat. One of the other things I would like, if Michael could look into, since we now have a notice of intent filed for sewer in Route 6, if we could look to the DEP and see what the regulations are now moving forward with septics along Route 6. Because it seems the Board of Health is still moving forward with abandoning septics when I believe we can do some minor repairs to them. But anyway, this one was completely, I also did pull the permit for the repair, and I don't feel that that's any conflict that a job that I did 8 years ago, that when the customer, my company's willing to go out and see what the problem
Well,
is.
This works on the septic system.
Yes.
That's not us.
Again, what I'm saying is the whole project, what I'm telling you, was approved in the site plan review. The tight tanks, all of that stuff is on the site. The drainage, this was a mass highway problem that inundated the system. So my conflict of interest comes that I was told, because I went out there to mitigate the problem, the complaint was lodged by the Board of Health against me. So I am the contractor in place on the site, and that's why I went out there. I didn't go out there in the capacity of selectman or planning board member or anything like that. I went for my customer. And
Well, from our standpoint, I don't see any conflict.
that's why I just wanted to clarify.
You weren't on the board when that was approved.
And I haven't worked on any projects that I've voted on here and have any projects coming before me. I will recuse myself if I have any intent of to one of my customers or anything like that. So,
I don't see how it's a conflict as your role as a selectman either, because selectmen have no jurisdiction over Board of Health issues. Okay, thank you.
Want a motion to adjourn?
No.
No, just sit down.
So we, originally, we had discussed with the East Beach group to have them come before the planning board and make a presentation. And I believe that it didn't get on the agenda because we had 3 public hearings on this. It would be a busy night. But we don't have those. And I don't know if it makes sense for us as the planning board to see their public presentation, or should we wait until CRC meets on Thursday and brings it back to the planning board, and then we can see it? So it's up to.
Well, I know they're
up to
gonna
the
make a
board.
presentation to us, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the intention, yeah.
Yeah. But what do you wanna do?
I wouldn't mind presenting, since the planning board eventually is going to be making the decision, ready to present it. You entertain it?
We said that they could be under the short and long-term matters, which is agenda item 8.
You could, if you make it short, because it's getting late.
And the chairman has a sore shoulder.
A sore shoulder.
I didn't even know that. You all right?
I'm crankier than you.
We get to be old cranky old man.
Right, so I basically was asked to present on the situation in East Beach with an assessment of what was occurring and policy recommendations.
Okay, so first of all, you should, who are you?
Oh. I'm Tony Vivenzio. I'm on the CRC committee. I had previously served on the East Beach Vulnerability Study Committee, a resident of East Beach.
And what's your address?
134 East Beach Road.
You live there?
In the summer.
Well, where do you live all year round?
I live in Taunton. Oh, yes.
Could you give us your address for the record?
Sure, 119 Nichols Drive, Taunton.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. What?
Oh, sorry. 119 Nichols Drive, Taunton, Massachusetts. Yes, Nichols.
So this is a presentation by property owners at East Beach, or by your group?
Yeah,
Representing property owners?
right. So, I'm representing the Association of Property Owners as well, in East Beach. All right, so just a quick starting point. Westport's the coastal agricultural resource community of New England. And, the words coastal, resource, and community stand out there. East Beach itself is a coastal resource with a strong community. And so as we consider what to do with that resource, we need to consider that for all natural resources, conservation is the practice of caring for and preserving them so that living things can benefit from them now and in the future. All right, so assessing the current situation in East Beach, I'll give a quick snapshot of just some factual background that helps to frame the forward-looking decisions. Okay, so regarding East Beach, this is the Woods Hole sea level tide gauge, long-term trend since 1932.
Could I just make a suggestion that you make it smaller so it fits on there?
Yes. All right. Okay, so the long-term trend since 1932 is averaging 0.12 inches a year. So although sea level rise is a very hot topic, the actual level as measured, the actual data indicates that the sea level rise rate is fairly slow with a small increase in more recent years. So this would mean that over a decade, it would be 1.2 inches. Regarding the shoreline of East Beach, so this is a set of shoreline transects. This is from the vulnerability study. So the shoreline had 100 feet of sand loss from the 1930s following the causeway construction to 1978. Since 1978, East Beach has become mostly cobbled. It has been in relative stasis with smaller shoreline movement in and out for different surveys. And you can see the shoreline surveys in the blow-up insert. And it's not monolithically moving in. Some years it's moving in, some years it's moving out. I'll have another view of that. Some transects show erosion, minor erosion. Others show stasis. Both have uncertainty magnitudes close to the measurement magnitude. So this is a history of a specific transects. Most transects are similar, but here you will see, so what is shown here is basically the shoreline distance. And so you'll see that the shoreline basically had a period of stasis or equilibrium prior to the causeway installation. Then during that time frame where the causeway was put in place, there was about 100 feet of erosion. And then following that time, there's a reestablishment of an equilibrium with the shoreline moving in and out, but in much smaller magnitude. So this brings us to the January and December storms that really caused a lot of discussion at the planning board regarding East Beach. These were significant storms, 62-mile-an-hour peak winds, significant wave heights measured in the 19 to 21 foot range. The surge was over 3 feet. Here's a picture of the tidal gauge in Newport showing the first large peak is the December 18th storm. The second peaks are the January 10th and 13th storms. But you'll see the surge there well above mean high tide and predicted levels. And so this, of course, it caused a significant amount of erosion there, most similar to Hurricane Irene. Actually, the tidal surge data for Irene looks quite similar to what you see here in terms of the peaks. So regarding shoreline dynamics, the shore itself is very elastic and absorbs wave energy, which prevents damage to the inland structures. The protection results from both the dune elevation and the shoreline depth. And the elasticity limit is the beach dune level. Once the combination of the storm surge, the tide, and the waves cross that level, that's when you have that overtopping and the damage inland. So it's that scenario, that combination, relative to the height of the dune that we have to pay attention to. In the aftermath of the storm, we all know what happened there. A lot of the sediment was deposited in a pattern with heavier cobble and sand settling out first, primarily on the road, and then more of a sand mixture went beyond the road in certain places. It depended on the depth of the lot where the erosion or the overtopping occurred. But since that time, you can see it in the pictures, the erosion basically causes an erosion encarpment or a carve out on the shore, which produces essentially a berm offshore. And then the gentle tides following cause that berm to redeposit back onto the shore. And so we see that effect. That effect has been observed following those storms. However, property owners have pushed the cobble back onto their lots, in many cases retrieved material from across the road, yet significant quantities of material were still missing. Where did it go? So this is a picture of the East Beach Road being cleared by bucket loaders, and you can see here the volume of material that's being removed relative to the volume of material that's on the beach. So this is a very significant quantity of protective beach material that's being removed. This process was repeated 2.5 times this winter alone. The question is, how many times has this been repeated in prior years? So here we have the cobble removal process. There's a line of trucks waiting to take the cobble away from where it was deposited on the beach. This is not a natural process. The destinations for the cobble, you can see here, the circle in the distance there is work on the town beach parking lot. On the right is the Gooseberry parking lot. There were eyewitness accounts of trucks going up John Reed Road and up Drift Road. We don't know where else it was taken. Going back to the prior year, I noticed my lot was noticeably lower in elevation in the spring. Many rocks were missing, and I was trying to understand what had happened. This photo answered those questions. So in the prior year, there had been a winter washover, and those piles that you see there right in front of my lot, those piles were not placed on my lot, those were taken. So I did an analysis of all of these storms using storm tracking systems and weather and wave data, as well as historical photos and eyewitness accounts, to estimate the amount of cobble removal that has occurred since 2010, and compare that with sea level rise as a reference point. So here we see that since 2010, sea level rise is about 0.145 feet with the error bars of 6%. In contrast, the cobble removal is at least 2.81 feet, dwarfing 20x what's going on.
Can you explain the sea level rise again?
Sure.
So you're saying it's say it again?
Yeah, it's 0.145 feet since 2013. That's just an accumulation of the yearly average that I showed earlier.
The calculation that you gave me, I mean, this total sea level rise was 11.8 in 90 years. So that averages out to 0.13 inches, 0.13 inches per year.
Right. This is accumulated total since 2010.
Yeah, well, you're calling it 0.14 feet. It's just, that's not adding up.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, inches, right. So that's actually, you're good at math. Yeah, so I'm actually off by a factor of 12. Yes.
So about,
Factor
I don't
of
know,
12.
a year
Okay.
ago, I asked Bob Daler what that was.
Yeah.
And he gave me that number that I just calculated from your chart that you had, so.
That's sharp. Okay. So, but that actually emphasizes the point that if you look at the roadway there as a reference point, right, what we are doing there on the beach with the cobble removal practices is significantly increasing the vulnerability of the roadway relative to a global process of sea level rise, right? And we have control over that practice. So I really want to let this slide sink in. Now, the other effects that are occurring is that this process is not even along the shoreline because it has to do with deposits of material that are overwashed by the waves. So the shallower lots that are already more vulnerable have more percentage of material deposited on the road. In the deeper lots, that material settles out on the lot itself before it gets to the road. So the uneven distribution of material on the road, which then gets cleared and taken out of the system, further accelerates the erosion process for those narrower and shallower lots where the road is already more vulnerable. And we see that for the town-owned properties where there's certain pinch points, which I'll address later, where the ocean is close to the road, and those are perennial problems in storms. Okay. This is illegal under the Wetlands Protection Act. Basically, any project on coastal land shall not have an adverse effect by increasing erosion, decreasing the volume, or changing the form of any coastal beach or adjacent downdrift coastal beach. And then we have this ironic sign, removal of rocks prohibited by law. Okay, so that's an analysis of what is occurring in the current situation. Let's talk about pathway forward and policy recommendations. So this is the East Beach Vulnerability MVP study poll results. There's overwhelming support for taking gradual and incremental actions or immediate and aggressive actions to increase protection, much greater than the relocation option. So the board has been discussing retreat, and I just wanted to cover some of the downsides of retreat. First, as indicated, East Beach residents overwhelmingly don't want it. I've spoken to the local business owners, and they don't want it. The abandonment of East Beach Road means loss of ingress and egress routes affecting public safety. In that scenario, the Fontaine Bridge would be the only egress point, and any structural, mechanical, or electrical problems with the Fontaine Bridge could strand residents. Also, in a full retreat scenario, where the properties are essentially bought out or abandoned, the loss of tax revenue would be approximately $290,000 per year to the town. There would also be, in addition, the loss of money spent at Westport businesses by residents and fewer visitors going to that region. In addition, there would be increased trucking and vehicle traffic through residential neighborhoods. There's a substantial amount of commercial traffic, particularly from the nursery. So there's 18-wheeler semis that use East Beach Road to get onto Route 88 and use that as an egress. They don't wind through the residential neighborhoods. If that road is gone, that will be their only option.
I'd like to make a comment on that, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So that's kind of, they leave early in the morning out of Sylvans too, and that's school bus time. That's meaning they have to come in through the head. So right now, they come out and they get out on 88 right away. I mean, they do huge volume of business. We don't realize it because 88 is so accessible. So if we lost the road, that'd be a big to that farm.
Well, they don't necessarily have to come up through the head. They might go Hicks Bridge Road to 88 there, but understood.
So as an alternative, and as the public has expressed, there's the preservation option. And that's consistent with the view of East Beach and Westport as a coastal resource community. What do we do with the resource? We preserve it, protect it, maximize it. So as I indicated, actions to increase protection were the overwhelming survey choice. Protection of the beach protects public infrastructure along the beach. Those are directly tied together. And it preserves this resource for future generations. So the strong recommendation is that the planning board should recommend preservation instead of retreat. I've also taken the time to detail several pathway steps and specific recommendations for the immediate, near-term, medium, and long-term. So let's go through those. So on the immediate preservation steps, first one is stop cobble removal. It is illegal. The Highway Department should adopt the Shore Road clearing policy that was submitted in early January. The town of Westport must return any and all cobble which can be tracked down. And again, that goes back to the town's self-interest. With the cobble and beach material that's protecting the road severely depleted, that road will be subject to much more frequent overwash and much more potential for damage. The piles adjacent to the town beach are a starting point, and at least for those, we can try to get those done before April 1st. This is the draft Highway Department Shore Road clearing policy. It's really simple. Take the material on the road and basically put it on the setback immediately adjacent to the road. I've gone through this with multiple equipment operators. They said, yeah, very simple, very easy to do. And it would actually save time and staff hours because you're not piling the material, waiting for trucks, and trying to distribute and spread. You're just simply moving the material to the setback. The town already owns the setback. And the other thing is that property owners all have NOIs on the south side. We're all used to, in the spring, clearing our lots. That's something we already do. So this would not be any inconvenience at all. Just be returning the material that, if any did get overwashed on the road, just returning it back to where it came from, which is the beach system. I also recommend that the Highway Department contract with a supplier of compatible material so that it can be used for emergency repairs. That way they wouldn't have to use material from property owners for that purpose. Okay, so going to the near term, so that was the immediate steps, going to the near term. Okay, so here we're recommending road overwash protection, and that comes in two forms. The first is replacing the cobble from the East Beach properties that washed up in the road and was taken for other uses, right? So the material that we're talking about along the town beach is some small fraction of what was taken. Let's say it's 10%, right? So if we remember that picture showing the berm depleted in front of the road, okay, well, we've added 10% of what's missing back. We're still down 90% of protection for the road. So the recommendation here is to replace it all. That will greatly reduce the frequency of overwash events affecting the road. It is also a moral obligation, a legal obligation, and an environmental obligation. Okay? I've calculated the range of material taken 3 different ways. I still need additional data about a few things related to closing this range down, but it's like between 3,000 and 15,000 cubic yards. Again, this is cumulative. The second recommendation in the near term is to protect the roadway pinch points adjacent to town-owned shoreline property. So those are circled on the map. We're familiar with these areas. This is where oftentimes the road is in danger of damage. And so the problem with these areas is the narrow distance between the road and the ocean. In discussions with Rebecca Haney at CZM, her thought was that protective beach nourishment, likely including Chapter 91 for below mean high water, would basically increase that distance, add protective material, so that the road wouldn't be as easily damaged and undercut by erosion. So you're adding a buffer, protective buffer there. And that would be in conjunction with the nourishment that the East Beach residents are doing to protect portions of the road where there's private ownership in front. So it's essentially kind of a joint effort that results in protecting the road, whether it's privately owned or town-owned frontage on the beach. Funding sources. Options are Town of Westport funds, as well as CZM Coastal Resilient Grant Program. The time frame there for that program, it's actually quite timely. The 2025 request for responses will be released somewhere in the next 4 weeks. And the RFR is due 6 weeks after release. There's a potentially a local match that's needed, which could be town funds, also maybe supplemented by contributions from Buzzards Bay Coalition and other local contributions. The applicant would be the town of Westport. We do have some volunteers that can work with the planning department if needed to help with the grant process. And CZM also, seems very willing to help. Once the RFR is released, however, they're in a quiet period and they can't help us anymore. So if we don't get any further with specific details, I want this preservation step to stand out because it's a near term. It addresses the cobble depletion that was done by the road clearing process, and it addresses both the town-owned shoreline pinch points as well as what's occurring elsewhere on the beach.
Can I make one comment?
Yep.
So, I know we've been mentioned about the cobble being taken, and I'm not in favor of full retreat. I'm in favor of getting what we need to do is we need to prevent the overwash, because the cost to the town to remove the cobble, I know you're saying when we were down there, they wanted subcontractors to come in. We stopped paying prevailing rate. The cost of your cobble and what it costs us to clear the road when your cobble lands on the road is more than what your cobble's worth. And highway does this at a cost, and I mean a real savings to the town. And so when you keep saying that highway stole the cobble probably is worth less than what the cost was of clearing the road. So what we need to look at is we need to look at a way to mitigate this so that we don't have the washover. So I think that's what we should be looking in the future on the resilience.
Yes, right. And I think that's where depth and height, right, where you still have that elasticity of the beach absorbing the impact of the waves, right? In that scenario, you're protected. It's only when you overtop that all of a sudden now you have this damage. The other thing is, I don't think we want to use private contractors. Why wouldn't we just use highway department to
Well, that was one of the things. When highway was out there, that's what they kept saying. You want to get contractors in here. So we need, highway is our best bang for the buck to do that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Okay, so then I've also taken some additional steps talking about a little bit further out in the future, and this is just for the board's consideration. These are just ideas as we look towards the future. So the next one that I put in the near term, this is really a wild card. This basically, if we miss the boat, so to speak, on this one, it'll be pushed out to the long term. But the harbor dredge material, I've had some discussions with the Corps of Engineers. That project's already budgeted. However, it is possible to get supplemental funding from a different funding source to pay the difference in cost to relocate the material from the proposed dump site, which is offshore on West Beach, to East Beach. I show that with the yellow arrow there. You can see the proposed dredge area in the map and the proposed dump site. Now, there was some concern in the past about material from the previous clearing process in 2007 ending up back in the river. So East Beach as a site would really mitigate that concern. This dredging time frame for this project is fall 2024. The volume is 4 or 5 times larger than the previous dredge, 65 to 75,000 cubic yards. The material is all sand per the Corps. And then the two distribution options were one, upstream of tidal currents, minimum of 10 feet deep, which is has buffer for the draft of the vessel, in a longer rectangular area along East Beach. Option 2 is a central location where it can be pumped or rainbowed on shore. You see some pictures in the lower right of pumping and rainbowing of sand. Let's see. So basically, those are the options. Potential funding sources could be CZM or the National Coastal Resilience Fund. There are projects that they have approved in the past, such as this one, improving the pathway for beneficial use dredge materials to aid in coastal resiliency. So there are some examples. Again, if we miss the boat on this There will likely be repeat dredge opportunities in the future as part of their harbor channel maintenance.
Mr. Chair, one of the things that I heard on that too was, they didn't realize the volume of material in the dredge presently, and we lost a lot in that last storm. So they did change the type of vessel they're gonna use, and they're gonna use a clamshell with a barge. So, I mean, I did ask the harbor master to work with Sean Leach and try to do something about this, because before they were gonna come in with a smaller vessel, and they kind of like vacuum it up, and then dump it, that same vessel dumps it out. Now they're gonna use a clamshell and load it into a barge, so there might be some other opportunity there.
Great. Okay, I'm almost done here. So medium term would be something that's really prepped for the long term. So this is coastal engineering for East Beach infrastructure preservation, looking at the area and identifying a desired level of infrastructure protection, basically storm design, and engineering specific plans for a large scale beach nourishment profile, sediment mix, quantity, top-up frequency, etc. The funding source would be the CZM Coastal Resiliency Grant Program, and then the applicant would be the town of Westport again, and mention the volunteers that can help if necessary with the grant application. So this would really be prep for the long-term proposal. So in that time frame, the BBC Gooseberry Causeway study, $1.3 million study, should be completed by the end of 2024. They are planning a summer 2024 update with findings from their computerized model to inform coastal management decisions. They're basically modeling water and sediment movement and evaluating causeway versus no causeway options. And they're looking at these coastal processes. Why is the river, backflowing? Why is it clogging up more frequently? Allen's Pond Inlet closing, Slocum River mouth again, impaired by lots of sand, where East Beach and parts of West Beach are sediment starved. All right, so going to the long term, set up by the results of the causeway study, would be potentially a causeway replacement with the raised road. This was brought up with a lot of emotion at the 3-1 meeting. So again, this would only be if the study justifies that replacement. The likely funding source would be the Corps of Engineers, which seems fitting since they built it, and it would require congressional authorization. And then the second one would be the larger scale beach nourishment project, and that would use the results of the coastal engineering medium term study that would inform basically how this nourishment project would occur. And then I've listed potential funding sources there. All right, so this just wrap up. So these are the funding source summary, different programs. As far as my understanding of these, will all do coastal resilience funding for types of work that we're looking at. So there's a number of different options. And there's been grants that they've given for projects somewhat similar to ours. Okay, so final conclusions here. So the recommendation summary, the planning board should recommend preservation instead of retreat. For the preservation pathway, we've broken it down into intermediate steps, near-term steps, and some medium and long. But the immediate ones are stop removing the cobble, return what can be tracked down easily, adopt the shore road clearing policy. Near-term steps are basically supplemental funding to get the materials that are still missing returned back to the shore. So again, remember that diagram, to build up that protection that's before the road, right? The depth and height of that material is what protects the road from overwash. And if that's depleted, guarantee that road will be overwashed more and more frequently. And it's not from sea level rise, it's from the practices of removing the protective material in front of the road. And then addressing the pinch points adjacent to the town-owned shoreline property. All right, so why spend effort on East Beach preservation? Because we are a coastal resource community. We're preserving a coastal resource for future generations, and we're in the process protecting valuable public infrastructure. But, you know, there's a lot of obstacles to overcome. So I'll leave you with this wisdom from John Bulliard, who overcame similar obstacles in working with neglected urban infrastructure. And here we're working with neglected coastal resources. The best way to save the world is to focus on just one piece of it. And the best way for us to do that would be to work to make our hometown a better place. And it's that combination of optimism, courage, and joy that you don't approach an obstacle or challenge with dread. You approach it with what an opportunity to have fun with someone else and with other people.
Yep.
All right.
So, Tony, I have a couple of comments.
Sure.
One, for Thursday, I beg you to cut that presentation in half.
Sure.
Okay? And remember, we're on Zoom. So the slides with a lot of words aren't going to work. Okay? So eliminate all the slides that have a gazillion words and cut the time in half.
Sure.
And what we're trying to do is focus on recommendations to the planning board which take the form of motions. So keeping in mind that what you are going to be doing is making motions, put the slides there that are going to support the motions you're going to make, right? And eliminate the ones that really aren't doing that.
Yep.
And that's the way I would suggest you cut that in half.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one suggestion. Secondly, I support an awful lot of what you've got in here about beach nourishment, elevating the road, lots of things like that. The one thing that I would ask you to think about, a couple of things, is you've posed this as a choice between, you know, keeping the cobble where it came from, the policies that the town ought to adopt, which I'm totally on board with, or retreat. I don't understand why that's a choice. I don't understand why we don't have both. You know, instead of one or the other, both. Because I look at this as giving people information and then letting them make their own decisions for what's best with them. You know, that you may feel one thing about sea level rise, somebody else may feel another thing about sea level rise, and different people will come to different decisions. It's America, you know, come to your own conclusions. Somebody may want to say, I want to stay there for the next 100 years. Somebody else may read different reports and say, I want to leave. Fair enough, we're all different people. We want to give people tools to do whatever they want to do, right? If you want to leave, we want to help you leave. If you want to stay, we want to help you stay, right? Beach nourishment is going to help you stay. And that's what you're laying out with all the tools about beach nourishment, elevating the roads, all that helps you stay. But if somebody else says, I want to leave, then a voluntary retreat program will help you leave. You know, you pose it as either or. Is that really necessary to have it either or? That's one question. The other question I'd ask you is, you mentioned the storm, 60-mile-an-hour winds, 3 foot. I was just looking at, and you talked about the NOAA tide chart. I love NOAA, you know, I work for NOAA. I'm looking at a NOAA chart today of sea level temperature the last 12 months. The last 12 months of ocean temperatures are literally off the chart. I mean, they show this graph of ocean temperatures in the world for the last 20 or 30 years that are in this band, and the last year is up here. It is so far off the chart, people are saying, what the hell is going on with ocean temperatures? Now, what is temperature? It's heat. What is heat? It's energy. There is so much energy in the ocean. People cannot comprehend what happened to the ocean. And it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of the ocean. And we are very grateful that the ocean absorbs all that energy, because otherwise the air temperature would be, 120 degrees in Westport instead of what it is now. So what does that do? That energy gets transformed into bigger storms that aren't 60 miles an hour. They're 100 miles an hour. They're 120 miles an hour. So when that storm hits us, we're talking not what we saw in December. We're talking about a whole different category. And you were there in the select board when Joe Costa said, well, when we have regular storms, people keep doing what they're doing, which I'm all for. It's when you have the big storm, the Hurricane Carol, the 38 hurricane, that people have maybe more thoughtful responses. And I think that may be the right approach, that we adopt all the recommendations about, raising the road, returning the cobble and the sand where it came from instead of exporting it to other locations in Westport, who knows where it went. That's your investigative work, which I think really contributes to our understanding of what we need to do. And when the big one hits, I hope that's a long, long time from now, but who knows? Then maybe we do something else. But in the meantime, let's do the things that you describe in there. But I just ask you to think about, why does it have to be either or? Why don't we give lots of people different tools depending on what they choose to do? But thank you for this, and I ask you if you can cut it.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Good suggestion.
Thanks, Tony.
I have a couple of comments as well. I object to the use of the word illegal. What the highway department did was not illegal. They have an obligation to open the public roads, and they did that. And I know, and I know you would like them to pile the debris that washes into the road on the lots so that you can move it. I understand that, and I'm sympathetic to that. I'm not sure that's easier for the highway department, and I'm not sure that the highway department has any right to work on your property. I'm quite sure they don't have the right to work on your property, but laying that aside. What's really missing in your presentation is that, CCM does this, CCM has this fund, CCM has that, CCM possibly do that, this is the CCM policy. That's great. Except none of that applies to East Beach. That what East Beach needs, if you want the town to work with the owners, and I would like the town to work with the owners, there needs to be, to have DEP, CZM, whatever the jurisdictions are, say, oh yeah, no, we will let you rebuild that, because when you read the Barrier Beach regulations, it says you can't do any of that. And what we need is, a comprehensive plan for the management. What is allowed? What, the kind of repairs that people have done where they just, because it's a storm emergency, they push the material back on the beach. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have, that's not my fight. My fight is I'd like to have an effective solution. And I know that we could take the sand from, it seems a great idea to take the sand from the dredge, put it over there on the beach, except that it doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell of staying on the beach, because what stays on the beach is something this size, and when you try to put that size in that energy environment, it just goes away. I've done quite a bit of coastal structures, and there was a time I did quite a bit of that, and I did it in high value, I did it, quite a bit of work on Nantucket, and I get it. And when I were able to get permits, and they're not easy to get for some structured solution, they always required beach nourishment. You know what my advice to the clients were? And they want to do the beach nourishment when there's no fish migrations, and it comes with all those kind of requirements. I told them, do it just before you arrive. Okay. Do it just before you, if you're planning to come in July, get your contractor all lined up, and the week before you come, put the sand there. Because if you do it in the fall, it won't be there. When the cobble beach, when the beach looks like East Beach looks like, and you can see the cobble, and you can see the beach is repairing itself. There's a little sand berm being formed and everything. The beach is, the natural processes are restorative, but they're not restorative in a way that protects you from a real energy event like the storms we've had. So, the idea that you cite all these policies and all of that, the question is there, can we get a plan? Can we get an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission? Can we get DEP, CZM to develop a plan for this? And then the town and the neighbors will work together. If there was an order that allowed the town to take material from the road and put it on your lot, that's one thing we could do. There's, that idea. But the idea of CZM would like to restore the beach and protect the beach, and we'd like to protect the road, so let's just do it. I don't think that's the answer. The answer is let's see what we can get approved. Let's see what we can get a permit for, and then let's get that permit to allow the town and the owners to work together. And other than that, we could have us, let's say the storm occurs next Tuesday. What's the highway department going to do? They're going to do what they did last time. They're going to clear the road. Unless, again, and if it's easier to pile it on the lots, I'm sure the highway department would pile it on the lots. But what's really missing is a comprehensive plan, and I think whether or not, you know, we're spending energy on the wrong things, looking at, is it the causeway's fault, or is it, you know, it's, you know, does the causeway influence it? All of those things are possible, you know, but the causeway's been there for a long time. You know, who knows what the conditions are, what the conditions are. Can we work out a plan where the conditions are? I mean, they can't be, you know, we don't own, the town doesn't own the causeway, the state owns the causeway. You know, the idea of, well, that'll be the answer, but we can't wait to that. We need to have a plan, given the conditions what they are, and whatever input we get from the Buzzards Bay Coalition. I'm on the advisory committee. John's a member of the Buzzards Bay Coalition, where, you know, I've contributed to the study. I'm all in favor of getting that input, but I would love to have a permit that says, here's what the plan is, here's what you do. The next time the storm comes, the highway department's going to put the material here, and the owners are all on board with that, DEP's on board with that. There's a plan in place. Working towards that it leads us to a productive answer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And not, you know, not thinking, you know, not thinking of possibilities. I'm all in favor of looking at possibilities, but I'd like to make them have a plan in place, and we don't have this conflict of, did the town do the right thing? Did the owners do the right thing? Are they filling without permits? Let's answer, those questions are answerable. You know, we can get a plan.
I do have a couple of answers to those, just real quick. So everyone on the south side has order of conditions already. So in part of my order of conditions, I bring in material for beach nourishment every year. You know, we basically have compatible material that we vet through conservation, and then we try to engineer the slope that's as similar as we can to the natural slope, given our horizontal distance limitations and elevation issues. So we are doing those things. It's just that in this case, there's a huge volume of material that's not in the system that we want to return back to the system, which will better protect the road. But I agree that you know, having something comprehensive is a good idea. That medium phase plan was the coastal engineering aspect of it. I think small scale stuff like returning the material that was already there, with people already having order of conditions, can be done, you know, in the near term, and then the town addressing some, you know, pinch points. You know, they may need some additional study for that, or they may be able to address that. But I agree that that would be good. And I submitted that plan for the highway clearing to put the material on the town-owned setback, to try to advance that process. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
So, thank you very much. I would just like to add a couple things. One, as you've sat in the audience listening to us go through our regular stuff, we're really about zoning and approvals for doing things that are approved at town meeting. And I think that we need to have for the planning board to come up with their final recommendation. I think we have to have more information from you folks, because Kevin said that some people have a lease for putting their trailers on part of the town right-of-way, and we find none of that at the town hall. So if you have copies of those, or some of them, it would be very helpful. And second, the permitting for trailers talks about registered trailers. And I don't know if, I don't remember seeing a lot of registered trailers over there. And is that the case, that they're mostly not registered? They're not out there today, I can't go look, but, and an additional item, is the town has approved, as part of their zoning, the FEMA regulations. And the FEMA regulations have certain stipulations about what is allowed to be put in a flood-prone area. And I think we need to have a discussion about those kinds of things, like sheds, decks, other things that are going in there without approval. They have to get approval from the town. I don't know who it will be, but that has to be set up too. Otherwise, we're in violation with the FEMA regulations. And anybody else in town doesn't have to be on East Beach who has flood insurance, and we have a big disaster, they're not gonna get paid because we're not compliant with the FEMA regulations that we agreed to at town meeting, so we need to be able to do those things. So anyway, I think I'm on board with trying to preserve the cobbles from the road instead of sending them somewhere else. I think that makes some sense. I don't think that the town surveyor or the town highway department did it to take it away. They did it to clear the road. And I think they've always done that. And I think in previous years, when I've been privy to some of the conversations about this, is the town council told them that they didn't have the ability to put it on private property because they don't have the ability as a public person to put it on your private property. So however we work that out, I think would be helpful to everybody. Because I'm sure it costs the town more to bring it away somewhere else than to leave it there. So,
In some cases too, though, you got the, like they said, with the sheds and other debris, and these storms were kind of minimal. Well, you know, we get one that takes the poles all down, now we got other situations, we got wires.
That is the issue for me, is these storms. We've had not just these three that you're talking about, we've had 6. One last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And in the town of Situate, it took all the beach nourishment they put in since those storms is gone.
Yeah.
$600,000 worth of beach sand, gone. And what is concerning to me is that these storm and this weather pattern is going to continue. We're going to get another one this weekend. I don't know what it'll do. It's going to be a big rain, but it's coming up the coast just like the others. If we have these kind of storms when the trailers are there, and it's not a named storm, what's going to happen? We're going to have a mess.
Right, you hit on the key issue. If you remember that picture with the burn showing how much it was depleted over time, right? That is an absolutely critical issue. So, you know, I've been at ground zero during those storms. And with that level, that elevation, that level of protection, we don't get overwashed, and the beach absorbs the wave energy, even quite significant waves that when you stand on the road, they look like they're coming over the road. But because you have that beach system and the returning waves trip to subsequent waves, it essentially stays, you know, contained in the beach system. But with that level of depletion, guaranteed you're going to have much more overwash events. That's why it's so critical to get that material back onto the beach that was there before these removal practices took it away, to protect the road, to protect the property owners that are there with their trailers from those smaller scale storms. So that's a really good point.
To me personally, I think it's important to protect the road as long as we can. But at some point, sea level rise and increased storms, it may not be possible. But just as an aside, Atlantic Avenue was devastated just like East Beach with these 3 storms. But it wasn't as bad because we had dunes. It broke through the dunes in a few places, and then that created a mess. But the dunes that had built up since Hurricane Carol, when I was a kid, were higher than that trim board, but now they're about this high. And that is, to me, that's the preservation of the barrier beach. And when you're talking about preservation, you're talking about preserving the road and your property, not preserving the barrier beach. So, and you're talking about dunes, you don't have any dunes over there that I can see. I mean, you haven't for a long time. And so there's a difference, but
And to say that too on the cost of, like preserving the dunes, and what Bob Daly said about putting the sand on East Beach and it's gone. So, you know, like we talk about the cost of the cobble, it's actually probably more cost in equipment time removing the cobble than the cobble that came off your beach onto the road. Now we look at the cost of the material that's being dredged. It's far more than any beach nourishment that you're gonna buy and dump on the beach to dredge that material and to use it for coastal resource like the barrier beach and the dunes. That would probably be the best use of that type of material.
well, I think there is some discussion about putting it on West Beach, not on East Beach. And if you put it all the way up towards Gooseberry on West Beach, at least, by the time it gets back in the harbor, it'll be a long time.
Right.
So,
Well, it'll probably rebuild some of the dunes.
right,
And that's-
yeah, right. So,
Want a motion to adjourn now?
please,
Yes.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Thanks, Tony.